Greetings and welcome to Hexed Encountered. I'm Joe. In this game, we'll be taking a first look at the game Return to the Rock, Corregidor 1945. This is from Take Aim Designs via Revolution Games. Designer is Michael Rinella, developer Roger Miller, graphics by Charles Kibler, and cover design by Richard Handwith. And as you might guess, this deals with the attack on Corregidor in 1945 by the Americans attacking the Japanese-held island that the Japanese took from the Americans at the beginning of the Pacific War. So I opted to get this in a Ziploc format because it's a relatively thin product here. But as Michael Rinella is one of my favorite designers, I think he's really kind of the current king of the area movement game, and I enjoy his stuff greatly. I snapped this one up when Revolution had a recent sale, along with Death of an Army, which is a World War I game on the Battle of Ypres. But let's get back to business here. I'm going to crack this open and pull the game out. So here's the cover. On the back, you've got playing pieces with the unit coloring, unit types. You can see armor, artillery, machine guns, infantry, pillbox, unit info, right? So you can see here what the counter, the stuff on the counter means. Your parent organization, your special unit, info, attack, defense, and movement factor. And then its spent side, and what its defense factor is while it's spent. Notes, units with an S in their special unit information circle are never permanently eliminated and eligible to return to play during the reinforcement phase. And you got strength factors, parent organizations. Here's our markers. The turns are in day and night, where the US will have the advantage during the day and the Japanese at night. You can see the advantage markers, victory point markers, control, impulse, bombardment, optional markers. So that's what's on the back of the cover. Here is the rule book, and we'll take a quick look at that. So the rules run 14 pages. That includes the index and glossary at the back. So it tells you how you have your intro, where it tells you how to learn the game. An introduction. It's a two-player game, simulating Operation Topside, the American invasion of the Japanese-held island of Corregidor in the Philippines between February 16th and 22nd, 1945. One player commands the attacking Americans and the other commands the defending Japanese. All right, our components. We get a 17 by 22 inch map, one half sheet of 96 5/8 inch die cut counters, one counter strip with 8 additional 5/8 inch die cut counters, a cover and player aid, which we just saw, and the rule booklet. We do need 2 6-sided dice. Dice are not included. I have plenty of dice, as I'm sure most of you do as well. Our map, we've got map areas. As I mentioned, this is an area movement game. The map is divided into 27 numbered locations, hereafter called areas. You've got identifiers for each one, and then each one will also have a terrain effect modifier. And I'm not going to go in depth on everything because we'll do that when we play. Invasion approach boxes, Japanese hidden units. They have a box as well. Our turn track, impulse track, victory points, track, marker holding boxes, and an eliminated units box. If you played any of Michael Rinella's other games, a lot of this is pretty standard. Our playing pieces, we saw a good look at those here on that player aid. Preparing for play, the game length. It is a 7-turn game, covers the first 7 days of the invasion from the 16th to the 22nd. Design note: while American mopping up operations continued into early March, organized Japanese resistance had effectively ended after the first week of the invasion. Choosing sides: each player should secretly record which side they wish to play. And then you could have a bid off if you both pick the same side. This is a game where either side could win. The Japanese, of course, were on defense, and while they could not actually probably hold out forever, they could make things very costly for the Americans. Then you've got marker placement for setup, our unit setup, tell you where to put your units. These guys start in the airborne invasion. There was a paratrooper drop as well as a seaborne landing. Then you've got a second wave, and then you have Japanese setup. Here's our seaborne invasion. Then you have the Japanese setup sequence of play, the reinforcement phase for the Japanese and the Americans. The daytime phase, this would be when the U.S. will have the advantage, and you can see the U.S. advantage, U.S. side is up, momentum, beginning with impulse 2 before declaring the type of impulse they will perform. The player with momentum makes a die roll each impulse to determine if they've lost momentum, and then that tells you what the die roll would be if you've lost momentum or to make you lose momentum. The player with momentum may continue to select impulse options until they lose momentum, they declare a pass, or they have no fresh units remaining on the map. Types of day impulses, you can choose an assault and a bombardment for the Americans and a pass. And then you have a description of your assault, bombardment, and passing. Night phase, where the Japanese will have momentum. Types of night impulses, fairly similar, except for this infiltration. So the Americans can do bombardment because they had a lot of firepower, and the Japanese were specialists at infiltration, so that is their special action, I guess you could say. And then you've got night phase restrictions, the reorganization phase, and the end phase. And then you get into the nitty-gritty of the details of the rules with stacking, control, contesting areas, vacant areas, free area, movement. So the mechanics, activating an area, movement costs, restricted boundaries, multiple area destinations, airborne invasion, seaborne invasion, the Japanese hidden units, Japanese at nighttime infiltration, and our movement restrictions. Then combat rules, mandatory attacks, optional attacks, contested areas, combat resolution, etc., explaining attack value and defense value. Again, if you've played any of Michael Rinella games, these are fairly standard. I think they're just essentially tweaked for whatever the specifics of the campaign being modeled is. Then you've got bombardment rules, air, artillery, and naval, how you resolve it, bombardment attack, and defense values, mistaken attack. So that would be friendly fire, essentially, right? Air or naval bombardment is contested. If that target area is contested, the American casualties can occur if the original unmodified attacker and defender DRs are equal. Then you've got attrition points and retreat rules. Reorganization, advantage for day and night phase. February 16th special rules, that's the first turn. Victory conditions, how do you determine the level of victory? Side determination and bidding, optional rules. There's always some of those. You've got things like historical leaders, and if they die, Japanese mortars, American flamethrowers, suicide detonations, and suggested reading. That's always welcome. And then the example of play, which I always find to be useful, because even though if you've played some of his other games, it's always useful to at least read through the example of play to find out what nuances are special to this particular game as compared to some of the others. And then we, of course, we have an index and glossary at the back. And on the back, if you like Corregidor, you might like these other exciting games from Take Aim and Revolution. Patton's Vanguard, Counterattack the Battle of Arras, 1940. So we have Arrakor here in 1944. The Siege of Orgun, that's Afghanistan. And then Last Battle at Aishima, 1945. Aishima is a small island off the coast of Okinawa. Then we have counters here, right? So here we have some American counters with markers. Right, so you can see their naval bombardment and their air units as well. Then we have the Japanese units on this side and their suicide markers, the day turn, here's the impulse, etc. Of course, there is a backside. For night turn there, you can see, etc. Here's the single strip of 8 additional counters. And then there's the map. So let me unfold this. It is a paper map, but it is nice and sturdy here. And it mostly fits. Let me adjust a little bit so you can maybe see it better. So I can't really zoom out much further, but here you can see all the areas on the island. Got a Japanese hidden unit box up here. This is the Japanese side facing down. Night infiltration table with their stuff here, sequence of play, etc. And then, of course, at the bottom, we have things more directed to the American side. Their invasion box, their airdrop table, the seaborne landing table, their seaborne invasion box, sequence of play, and then various unit indicators here. Victory point track is here. Here's the turn track and the impulse track. And then at the top, we have our eliminated unit box right here. And that is that. So that will do it for this video. Thank you for watching. As always, if you have questions or comments, feel free to let me know. But that's going to do it for this one. Please consider liking, sharing, and or subscribing. That is always welcome. I do appreciate the support from you guys. But that is going to do it. I'm Joe. This is Hexed Encountered. And until next time, as always, happy gaming.